بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد قد قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم خذ العفو وأمر بالعرف وأعرض عن الجاهلين صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الأمي الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Bismillah. Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Pak has given us the tawfiq to be in His house. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes from us perfection in everything that we do. As a Muslim, it means to submit to Allah. Allah Pak wants us to submit to Him perfectly in every single command which He sends upon us. And whenever a believer decides once La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, then a person he submits the total authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So whenever a person recites La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, that means that whatever Allah and Rasulullah will now tell him to do, he will carry that out. Meaning, I have now accepted the command without a shadow of doubt, wholeheartedly. I will accept every command of Allah and Rasulullah, whether my mind understands it, whether the faculty or intellect can understand what the command is or not. I will carry that out. This is the meaning of La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now, if we look into the Sahaba Ikram, a close study of the Sahaba Ikram, we will realize, and our pious predecessors and Salaf Salihin, they will bring us to this very same conclusion, that once we recited La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, it means that every command that will come of Allah, I will follow it out. And this is what the perfection in submission is, what a complete Iman-e Mu'min, Iman-e Kamil, which Allah Pak wants from us. So whether any situation arises, a true believer doesn't need convincing to fulfill the command of Allah. He's ready at all time, whether in sickness, whether in poverty, whether in difficulty, whether in musibat. At all time, you don't need to give him any logical proof or arguments, etc. Just the command of Allah and the word of Nabi Pak Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is sufficient for him to do that action. Allah Pak give us the tawfiq. So upon this, I'll mention a few examples and then we'll finish. So there was one Sahabi, Hazrat Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu. So Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas mentioned here, Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu used to have a mashwara with certain people, tabi'een and sahaba, and in his assembly and council, he used to select ulama and pious people, that they would sit with him and give mashwara how to manage the affairs of the ummah. So there was one young Sahabi called Hur ibn Qais. So Hur ibn Qais was an alim, faqih, zahid. He had an uncle called Uyayna ibn Hisn, which is mentioned in the kitabs. So one day his uncle said, look, I want to meet Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu, and you're quite close to him. You have permission to go to his close circles, make mashwara. Can you get me an audience with Umar bin Khattab? So he said, of course, I will put a request forward. So Hazrat Hur ibn Qais, he went to Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu, and he said, look, my uncle wants to meet you. Would you allow some time to meet him? You're a very busy person. Umar ibn Khattab, he said, okay, I will allow. So when Uyayna ibn Hisn got permission to come, he walked in without any adab, without any etiquettes, without any sort of protocol. He just said, oh, Ibn al-Khattab, by Allah, you do not give us enough and you do not judge between us fairly. So straight away he instigated a situation where Umar bin Khattab would get angry. So fury was seen on Umar bin Khattab's face, radiyallahu anhu. Okay, he's come in, I've given him permission to come and talk with me, and straight away he just accused me of not judging properly, not being generous, and being unjust in what I do. So Hazrat Umar bin Khattab got up ready to hit him, whip him, and punish him. And straight away the nephew of Uyayna ibn Hisn, Hur ibn Qais, who gave permission, who made the meeting possible, he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, خذ العفو وأمر بالعرف وأعرض عن الجاهلين. Umar bin Khattab, adopt forgiveness, خذ العفو وأمر بالعرف, and enjoy what is good, وأعرض عن الجاهلين, and turn away from the ignorant. So when Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu heard this, he was about to get up, straight away he sat back down and his whole mood changed. Meaning the effect of the command of Allah was such that no matter what emotion he's going through, he could stop that emotion in front of the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. आजकल हम लोग हमसे ये चीज़ नहीं होती. If I'm angry with a friend outside, I will come home and let the wife taste my anger. I will beat up the children. I will fight with my wife. I will, leave the home in anger. I will stop talking to said, why? Because I've got an issue with one person, I'm taking that anger, venting it out on every other person. So Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas said, when he heard this, Kana Umar waqafan inda kitabillah, that when the command of Allah came in the Quran, no matter what situation arrived, he would be stopped straight in front of it. And this is what the command of Allah Ta'ala really is, that we should not suppress the command of Allah with our emotions. Allah give us tawfiq. Whenever the command of Allah Ta'ala comes to do something, emotions to one side, fulfill the command of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So it was the habit of Umar bin Khattab, whenever anything was recited in front of him of the Quran, he would stop in front of it. And if you look into the life story of Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, the effect of Quran was always apparent on his life. There's so many stories. Balki he even embraced Islam through the effect of the Quran. When he was going to kill Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and on where he was going, and he met a person and said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to kill Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He said, why? Because he's making people Muslim. He said, why don't you go to your own house and check your own sister, Fatima bint Khattab, known as Jamil. Fatima bint Khattab, she's embraced Islam, and your brother-in-law as well. Go and deal with them first. So he changed his track, he went to his sister's home. Mashhur qissa, he beat them up until he saw his sister bleed. He hit his sister that hard that his sister bleed, and then he realized, yeah, I've done wrong. So I said, what were you doing? Praying Quran. Show me the Quran. He said, I can't give you the scripture of the Quran. You are napak, you are mushrik. Go and do ghusl. So he went and did ghusl. He came back and then she handed him the verses of the Quran. Now in the whole of Makkah, how big is the population of Makkah? Thousands of people. Historians have written only 17 people knew how to read and write. 17 people knew how to read. The mushrikeen, they never knew how. They didn't have a divine religion. The Jews were all educated. The Christians were all educated. They had divine books. So they knew how to read, and they would teach their children how to read and write. In Makkah, 17 people only could read and write. Well, Umar bin Khattab was amongst those people. So when it was brought in front of him, the Quran, he prayed the Quran. And there's two riwayat. One is when he reached Surah Hadid. Surah Hadid. هو الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن وهو بكل شيء عليم. Sifat of Allah. And that melted his heart. And the second one is when he read Surah Taha. He reached the verse, إِنَّنِي أَنَا اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا فَعْبُدْنِي وَأَقِيمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِي. So straight away his whole life changed through the Quran. And then he went and embraced Islam, and he became a devout Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Umar bin Khattab's effect on the Quran was such. Once he was doing gasht in the night, and while he was doing gasht, he went past one Ansari person's house, and that Ansari was praying, وَالطُّورِ وَكِتَابٍ مَسْطُورٍ فِي رَقٍّ مَنْشُورٍ. This verse, these ayat. When you go to Inna adhab rabbika lawaqi', indeed the adhab of you, Allah, is going to descend, is going to happen. Umar bin Khattab got so affected by the Quran that he had to get off his camel and lean against the wall of the house. And he leant against the wall and he became ill. He began to palpitate. Hadith brother began to palpitate. He couldn't even breathe properly. When he heard this verse of the Quran, thinking about the adhab of Allah. And he cried so much and he fell down. He was carried home, and for 1 month he stayed inside his bed. And no doctor could diagnose the illness behind why. And the reason was the effect of the Quran on his life. Well, hadith mein aata hai ki once he was praying Quran, Jummah khutbah. In Jummah, he was praying Salah, and he read the verse, إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ. When he read this surah, when the sun will be turned over, كُوِّرَتْ. So when he read this verse, he couldn't even recite anymore. His crying overwhelmed him. And शायद पिछली हफ्ते को मैंने जिक्र किया था कि he used to recite Surah Yusuf a lot in Fajr. And in the Hashiyah of Muwatta Imam Malik it is mentioned, whoever prays Surah Yusuf a lot, it's a sign Allah will grant him shahadat in his life. He will get the gift of martyrdom. Allah sabko nasib farmaye, afiyat ke saath, sehat ke saath. So Hazrat Umar bin Khattab was praying Fajr once, and he got to the ayat وَبِيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ فَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. The qissa of Yaqub alayhi salam. The eyes of Yaqub alayhi salam turned white due to excessive crying. مِنَ الْحُزْنِ, due to grief. وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. And inside his heart he was full of anguish. When he recited this, he said he couldn't even recite anything further. He had to go into ruku. I mean, the Quran had such an effect. Ek martaba he was praying Fajr Salah, and he prayed again Surah Yusuf. إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. Yaqub alayhi salam said, oh Allah, I complain of my feebleness and my huzn and my grief only to you. So Umar bin Khattab, he recited this and he cried so much. There were thousands and thousands of people in Fajr Salah. It is mentioned right at the back of the Salah, without the mic system, the people at the back could hear the crying of Umar bin Khattab. This was the effect of the Quran on his life. So each Sahabi, this new topic probably starts now, but each Sahabi, the impact of Quran on his life was phenomenal. Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, unke mutaliq aata hai, Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa is the Rawi of the Hadith. She said Rasulullah would visit our house morning and evening and discuss matters. Aur hame bhi ye karna of the house he designated for musalla. Aur hame bhi ye karna chahiye. We should designate a corner or a room in the home which is only for ibadat, and call that the musalla. Apni zikr waha karo, tilawat waha karo, talim waha karo, duain waha mango. Do as much as we can. Make a little library, bookshelf, put your Islamic books there, put Quran Sharif there, put tafasir there, put tasbih there, put musalla there, put Quran Sharif there, put hadith books there. And that is your cut off from everyone and focusing towards Allah in the home. Allah sabko tawfiq ata farmaye. So Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, he took permission to make a musalla in his home, and he would stand there and pray Quran. So when he would pray Quran, and it comes in a hadith, Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, the effect of Quran was such that most of his tilawat was crying. He would cry more in his tilawat. So when he would begin to pray nafil and tahajjud and pray Quran, the ladies of Makkah, the mushrikeen of Makkah, ladies would walk past, and they would all begin to huddle up outside his house. So you'd have 5, 10, 15, 20 women, all of them with their children, like a big audience outside, listening to the tilawat of Abu Bakr Siddiq. But they would get affected by his tilawat, and it comes in a hadith, Ashraf of Quraysh, the leaders of the Quraysh, they had to stop their women. They were scared in case they may embrace Islam. The Quran has a big effect on a person. And when the command of Allah Ta'ala comes, then we should straight away acknowledge it. Jaise ke Shaddad ibn Aus Ghaliban, I think, no, Abad ibn Bishr and Hazrat Ammar ibn Yasir, Muhajir and Ansari. Rasulullah said one time, who will stay watch in the night? It's a ajeeb qissa hai. We think it's a fairy tale, but look at the Quran, what it had in a person's life. We don't feel this. We get affected by news and ye hua, wo hua, fulan, Zaid, Bakr, Amr ke kisse. Quran doesn't do anything to our lives. Hazrat Ammar ibn Yasir and the Ansar Sahabi are on watch. Whilst they're on watch, Rasulullah said, you have to watch the night, one Ansar, one Muhajir, because a mushrik lady had been kidnapped that night, or she had been killed. So some people had come out to do jasusi, scouting to see anyone around. So when Rasulullah went to sleep, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so one Ansar and one Muhajir. So the Muhajir said to the Ansar, let's split the night into two. One of us will go to sleep, and the other will worship. So the Muhajir went to sleep first. Yasir ibn Amir ibn Yasir. So he went to sleep, and other Sahabi, he stayed up, he started his namaz. When he started his namaz, this person found, oh, that must be the man who might have kidnapped my wife or killed my wife. To usne tir chala, he shot an arrow. Now this Sahabi is praying namaz. He's been shot by an arrow. When he got shot by an arrow, the hadith mentions he just pulled the arrow out, threw it on the floor, continued praying Quran in his namaz. Think about it. Then second arrow was shot. Come to the hadith. He pulled the second arrow out and threw it on the floor, continued his salah. The third arrow was shot. When the third arrow was shot, he pulled it out, quickly finished his salah. He woke up, the next Sahabi. Okay, look, I'm bleeding so much, I think I may faint, or on my death, I'm not bothered. It may jeopardize the life of Rasulullah. That's why I woke you up. So Sahabi said, why didn't you wake me up earlier? Now the scout runs off and he sees more than one person. Why didn't you wake me up earlier? He said, I was praying a surah in the Quran and I was enjoying the tilawat. And the effect of the Quran was so strong upon me, I did not want to end my salah before I finished and completed that surah. ये कुरान शरीफ का ताल्लुक. तो देखो ना आज ये स्वीडन में क्या हुआ अभी पिछले दिनों में. Had they burned the Quran. Yeah, हम तस्मस नहीं हुए. We're not bothered. एहतिजाज कर लिया जुलूस. This means nothing. जुलूस कर लिया, एहतिजाज कर लिया, और we love Quran. भाई कुरान को अगर मोहब्बत की नजर से दिल में अगर जगह होती, we'll be following the Quran. किसी की जुर्रत ना होती कुरान को जलाते. So we are Ahlul Quran. Because they know we're not following Quran, they know we're not implementing Quran, we are so far away from the Quran. जिसकी जी में चाहे वो उठकर कुरान को जला देता है, पूरी दुनिया में वावेला होता है, फिर ठंडे पड़ जाते हैं सबके सब. Nothing happens. दो चंद रोज के लिए उनको बॉयकॉट करेंगे, एहतिजाज करेंगे, ये फलां मेयर को खत लिखो, पिटिशन लिखो. भाई इससे कुछ भी नहीं होगा. Nothing will happen. And we know nothing will happen. The only change that can drive in the ummah is when you come onto Quran ourselves. Sahaba Ikram thake huए, they be tired, from a long journey. They will still pray Quran. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas ke mutaliq aate hai, mashhur hadith hai. His khadim says, you travel from Makkah to Medina, Medina to Makkah. I was with my Shaykh, Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas, radiyallahu anhuma. On the journey, he would stop and he would say, allow me to pray 2 rakat nafil. His routine was to pray 2 rakat nafil every night. Just 2 rakat nafil. What was the 2 rakat nafil? The half of the entire night. Half of the entire night was 2 rakat nafil. No matter what condition, he wouldn't let go of the Quran Sharif. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who died for Quran, he got shaheed for Quran. Because there was a debate with the Firqa Batila. They said Quran is makhluk. He said no. Ghayru makhluk. Kalamullah. Ghayru makhluk. Quran is Kalamullah, not makhluk. They whipped him. They lashed him. They said they lashed him 18 lashes. If one lash was to strike on an elephant, even an elephant would run away. Itna mara unko. You know how old he was? 80 years old. 80 years old. And his son says, that my father would pray 300 rakat nafil every single night. And after the whipping, because he became so weak and frail, and he would always be constantly ill, imagine taking those whips. And aisa nahi tha ki one man whipped him 18, no. 18 whips by 18 different people. Taki full force ke saath lagaye. If one person does 3-4, he gets tired himself. So he says, my father became ill, but he loved the Quran so much. So from the age of 80, he reduced his nafil to 150 rakats every single night. अंदाजा लगा 150 रकात every single night. भाई हमसे तो मगरिब के 2 नफल ही पढ़े जाते, हमसे तो इशा के 2 नफल ही पढ़े जाते, हमसे तो इशराक नहीं पढ़ी जाती. मैं अपनी बात कर रहा हूँ. वी को हम पढ़े इशराक, हफ्ते में 1-2 दफा पढ़ लेंगे और बस मैंने इशराक पढ़ ली. नहीं, 150 रकात नफिल at the age of 80. This is ta'alluq with the Quran. That's why the ummah, that's why, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, what did he used to say? कि people लोग पूछते कि आप हक पर हो या बातिल पर? Are you on the haq? Because every other scholar has sided with Mu'tasim Billah. Everyone's got on his side. Why are you still saying Quran is Kalamullah? He said, Haqq and Batil, my death will show you. Haqq और बातिल पर कौन है? मेरा जनाजा आपको दिखाएगा. My death, my janaza will show who's Haqq and Batil. From the reliable sources of Mustanad Kitabs of Tariq and Sirat, when he died, from Adam alayhi salatu wasalam till today, the biggest janaza ever the world has seen was the janaza of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahmatullah alayhi. Such a janaza किताबों में आता है, मुस्नद किताबों के अंदर आता है कि 2000 Yahud embraced Islam just by looking at his janaza. And then somebody saw him in a dream in Jannat, and he was walking with you know, like not pride, but walking with pomp, you know, like मजे से ऐसे चल रहा था यूं. तो किसी ने कहा कि इमाम साहब ये कैसा चलन है? How kind of चाल ये जन्नतियों की चाल है. This is how we are, we kings now. And then he said, I saw it began to rain upon him diamonds around him and pearls. And he began to pick them up. So somebody said, Imam Sahib, ye kya hai? He said, this is the i'zaz and the honor Allah has given me for the sake of my ta'alluq with the Quran Sharif. देखो, my dear friends, जब स्वीडन वाले कुरान को जलाते हैं तो हमारे दिल को जलना चाहिए, लेकिन हम टस्मस नहीं होते. We share messages, we share videos. That will not change anything. बल्कि if Quran is being burnt, we should think from now, they're burning Quran, I will begin to memorize the Quran Sharif. I will pray Quran. I will make sure I have the Quran in my life, my children's life. I will show the world, you can burn all the mushaf in the world. Quran is still alive in our hearts. जज्बा तो ये होना चाहिए. हमें से तो सूरह यासीन ही पढ़ी जाती. रातों को सूरह मुल्क मुश्किल से हम पढ़ते हैं. सूरह मुल्क रसूलुल्लाह तमन्ना लवदित्तु, he said I wish. लवदित्तु वुद कहते दिल की तमन्ना को. My heartfelt desire, my ummah learn सूरह मुल्क. We don't even pray it. Allah give us tawfiq. वह मशहूर किस्सा, एक सहाबी रात को he pitched his tent next to a place, he fell asleep. रात को जब सोए जो गनूदगी के आलम में थे, and he heard tilawat of Quran, he looked, no one's around him, he looked carefully from the ground, the tilawat of Surah Mulk was coming out. So when he got lighter, he saw that was a qabr. He pitched his tent next to a qabr. He couldn't notice in the night. In the morning he went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, I heard Surah Al-Mulk from the ground. What did Rasulullah say sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He said, yes, that man who was in the qabr, he used to pray Surah Mulk every night. Allah has allowed him to pray Surah Mulk in the qabr every night as well. And then he said in Irshād sallallahu alaihi wasallam, hiya al-mani'a, Surah Mulk rokne wali hai, it is a stopper, it makes stoppages. Hiya al-munjiya, ye najat dilane wali hai, it's one who grants you salvation. Tunjihi min adab al-qabr, and it protects and gives you salvation from the adab of the qabr. This is a guarantee. If I want my qabr to be Jannat ka baag, kam az kam har roz main Surah Mulk ko to tilawat karu. We hear this kitne dafa ye sun chuke hum ye hadith, lekin fir bhi hum tilawat nahi karte Surah Mulk ki. Ye hamari badqismati hai, badqismati hai. So Quran Sharif, my dear friend, we should have a ta'alluq with Quran Sharif as much as we can, and it is the Quran Sharif, my dear friends, that will take us to great maqamat in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm going to finish off this qissa and then inshallah we'll finish today's discussion. So Hazrat Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, when he heard the Quran ayat from Hur ibn Qais, straight away, you know, he said, I will not take this matter any forward. And Hur ibn Qais said, my uncle is from the Jahilin. Allah says, A'rid anil Jahilin. You know, just stay away from the ignorant. He said, my uncle is from the ignorant. And Umar ibn Khattab, he sat down, he didn't take any recompense from him. So, आज का सबक क्या है कि perfect submission. We have to submit to the command of Allah when Allah Ta'ala commands us. And if we do a close study of all the Sahaba, every single one was like this. It wasn't that somewhere, every single one would submit before the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We make dua to Allah Pak Allah Pak gave me the tawfiq, gave all of us tawfiq. And one is the Quran, they were submitted to, and secondly hadith. I'll finish on this. You know when sharab became haram in Medina Sharif, sharab. So Hazrat Anas ibn Malik, he says, as he was a young boy in the house, so he used to serve alcohol to his stepfather Abu Talha. Abu Talha was his stepfather, so he married his mother Sulaim. So he would give him alcohol, and he would have like a majlis, like a baitak hoti thi, or sharab ke jam, or jugs, when bottles would come out, and purana sharab, and Arabs were known to have preserved sharab for so many years, decades of years. So whilst his stepfather was entertaining the guests with sharab, and Anas ibn Malik would pour the sharab for them, have this to carry it and then open it and pour it for them, and sabko ji pila rahe the is tarah. So whilst he was doing this, one announcement came on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Prophet sent somebody, ke elan karo, an ala innal khamra qad hurrimat. And this echoed in the streets of Medina. He shouted at the top of his voice, listen carefully, alcohol has been made impermissible. One command of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now some people had the sharab here. Command came, what did they do? They dropped the glass. Those who had it inside their mouth, they spat it out. Those who had the glass in their hand, they dropped the glass. Those who had the jugs, they smashed the jugs. They say that alcohol was flowing in the streets of Medina Sharif. There were floods of alcohol through the city. And it says that there was such amount of alcohol on the streets that whenever anybody would walk past, whenever it would rain, you could smell for months on end alcohol coming out from the ground. But in front of one command, look what they did. So, mere bhaiyo, ye cheez jo hai, we have to adopt this inside us. What we need to do, the maa behne jo garon mein bhi sun rahi hai, the women listening at home, you'll hear adhan for Isha now. Abhi Isha ki adhan garon mein sunenge. What we should do straight away, stop everything and read Isha namaz. Ye aurdun ke liye hai. Whenever you hear namaz, adhan, stop whatever you are doing and pray your namaz straight away. Qari Muhammad Tayyib Sahib would say, Rahmatullah, the grandson of Mawlana Qasim Sahib Nanotwi, Rahmatullah, he used to say, my grandma, Hazrat Nanotwi's wife, whatever she was doing, the moment she heard the adhan, she would drop everything and sit down and respect and listen to the muadhin's words. This is how we have to comply to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal was seen in a dream and he said, who is your neighbor in Jannat? He said, wo luhar jo hai, blacksmith, wo mera neighbor hai Jannat mein. Wo kaise neighbor ban gaya? To kaha ki that was a long story, making it short. Because he was a blacksmith, he used to beat iron with his hammer. So whenever he would lift the hammer to beat the iron, when the muaddin would start, he would drop the hammer behind him and say, now is not time to work, but to respond to the adhan of Allah. Upon this, he became the neighbor of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal in Jannat. Respect for adhan. Kitab mein aata hai, Zubaydah Khatun, the wife of Harun al-Rashid, Rahmatullahi alayh, once she had brought friends to her. That's two riwayah. One is she was in her garden with her friends on the swing. One says she was sat in her room, in her palace with her friends, and the muaddin started his adhan. So she said, shh, mere behno, shh, adhan ho rahi hai, khamosh ho jao. Oh my sisters, be quiet. Adhan is taking place, be quiet. And she stopped the whole congregation from talking. And then adhan stopped and she said, okay, let's continue. Upon this, Allah Pak granted her Jannatul Firdaus. Somebody saw in a dream case, Zubaydah Khatun, kya bana aapka? Allah ne maaf kar diya. Oh, you made Nahd Zubaydah. वो जो canal जाती है हुज्जात को पानी पिलाने के लिए अरफात तक, through that. Said, no. And she mentioned this story because I showed respect to the adhan of Allah. Upon this, Allah Pak forgave me and granted me Jannat. हमारे घरों में अजान चलती है, we don't even pay attention. चल रही होती है, औरतें अपने काम लगी होती है. भाई अब तो ये मामला आ गया है. And again I'm stressing, if the ladies are listening at home, this is for the ladies in particular, Adhan goes off and the ladies don't even cover their heads in the home. But Allah se daro. Adhan is taking place. Allah ka naam buland kiya ja raha hai, and women are walking casually in the house without dupatta. How can barakat come in that house? Kaise aa sakti hai? There was a time when women adhan hote hi, they would put dupatta on straight away and be quiet. Ya to usse pehle har halat, all the time they got dupatta on. Now TV chal raha hai, mobile chal raha hai, drama dekhe ja rahe, baal khule hue hai, azan ho rahi hai, not bothered. Some people, Allah maaf farmaye, they even turn the adhan receiver off when adhan starts. Kyunki hame drama mein mushakkat aa rahi hai, you're messing up our TV program. तो उस घर में मेरे भाइयों, how can barakat and rahmat come in that house? उन बच्चों का मुस्तकबिल कैसे अच्छा हो सकता है? So my dear friends, Allah Pak give all of us tawfiq. Give all of us tawfiq. Respect the adhan. Show love to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is our medium for Jannat. किसको क्या पता है, अगर मैं आज adhan का ikram करूं, show love and respect for the adhan, imagine through this is my key to Jannat. Sahaba ikram हुजूर का चेहरा देखिए आता है हदीस में, सिद्दीक़ा माँ आयशा फरमाती है कि जब अजान होती हुजूर का चेहरा ही बदल जाता. It was as though he didn't know us anymore. He would be laughing and joking with his wife and the children, playing with them, talking with them, eating with them. Hazrat Bilal would call the adhan, Hazrat Aisha says, he would become a person as though we don't recognize him anymore. The whole demeanor would change. This is what adhan is meant to do to a person. लेकिन हमें कुछ पता नहीं है. And this is the reason behind our decline. Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa फरमाती थी, the first sign, the first reason of decline of this ummah is losing the azmat of the name of Allah. Allah के नाम की अजमत जब दिलों से उठ जाएगी, ये सबसे पहला सीढ़ी बनेगी इस उम्मत के ज़वाल की. And we can see today, no one respects them. इस मुल्क में फिर भी थोड़ा बहुत माहौल है अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह. हमारे मुल्कों में तो बिल्कुल ख़त्म. पाकिस्तान में, पाकिस्तान के अपने इलाके की बात कर रहा हूँ, अजान हो चलती रहेगी. No one cares what azan is. So this is why the ummah is suffering today. Allah Pak give me the tawfiq. If all of us, whenever the command of Allah Ta'ala comes, stop everything, fulfill the command of Allah. And this is what creates perfect submission. And this is what Allah Pak wants from us. And this is the foundation of success. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, in Hajj season, he told his perfect submission. Hajj is now finished. The lessons we learned from Ibrahim alayhi salam, apply them practically and continue this lesson of total submission and perfection. Allah Pak grant us barakat and goodness in this world and the hereafter. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alamin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.